And good afternoon, everyone. All right, I guess good morning also for those on the West Coast. Thanks for joining us. My name is Zach Allison. I'm the ATS National Accounts Manager for our market development team. I see that I'm pretty low in volume. I don't quite know why. It should be as per normal, but I will pull it closer and speak louder. But yeah, thanks for attending the ATS University. If you are new here, thank you for taking a shot. We are going to be going over the Franke presentation on stainless steel sinks. This is an ASPE accredited CEU, so be sure to get the email list over to the Franke team to assist with reporting afterwards. We do have all of our ATS University sessions. They also come with a certificate of attendance on the Friday. So we'll have that sent out if you're doing any sort of self-reporting for PDO hours or anything like that. And if this is your first time with ATS overall, essentially we are we like to think of ourselves as a bit of a plumbing resource. We have a number of manufacturers that are part of our ATS spec tool. This is a free program that assists you in selecting, configuring, and then downloading your product selections in any of our 10 different formats, all of which are designed to fit into various ways that engineering and architectural firms go to market with their specs. So there might be detailed written specs, less detailed written specs, schedules in Excel, PDF cut sheets. Everything's actually marked up and configured to your product selection to make sure that it's as accurate as possible for your job. And this is all sponsored and paid for by our lovely manufacturers so that we can give it to you free of charge. To make sure that everyone knows what they're selecting, we started our ATS University, which is just education similar to your lunch and learn style presentations. Sometimes they are more, general application specific deep dives where we may be talking about, say, healthcare applications or school board applications and talking about everything that's available on ATS. And then other times like today, we are deep diving specific product categories or even specific products, learning about all the fine details of the various options that are available, because frankly there's an abundance of options these days. So thank you, Angela from Franke, for joining us today and providing us with a great amount of detail. We will have questions, I'm sure, come in. You can pop them into the chat and the Q&A field there. I will bring those up to Angela as we go. And of course, if you are looking for a recording of the presentation, we will have that hosted on our website. At the end of the presentation, I will show how you can find that if you want to come back and reference any of the pieces that we talked about today. So yeah, thanks for joining us, Angela.
Thanks, Zach. That's a great intro. So thanks to everyone for participating in the webinar today. We appreciate your time. I'm getting an echo from my coworker here, so um, thank you. If there are any questions, put them in the chat. We'll have some time for questions at the conclusion of the presentation as well. Sorry, 1 second. Can you just mute yours? Thanks. So today, the learning objectives, you'll learn about the different stainless steel types and what makes them different on a chemical level. You'll gain an understanding of how stainless steel is used in the manufacturing and properties that make it an ideal material for deep drawing sinks. Now, this is a CEU, so this is completely unbranded, but just between us here, this is all Franke sinks, and you can find them all in the ATS platform. So you'll also learn about the different types of sinks that are in the market to be specified outside of the home. This is not a residential presentation. This is more commercial. And the factors that should be considered before selecting a sink for public or commercial space. We'll get into some of the socio-political trends, the market conditions, and environmental considerations that are shaping the commercial sinks landscape. And then we'll wrap up with some real-world examples of how stainless steel sinks can be specified for every space in a commercial project. By the end of this presentation, you'll have a deeper understanding of the benefits of designing, specifying, and installing stainless steel sinks for your commercial projects. So those are your objectives. So we'll start off with, this is what we're covering today. There's 6 sections. We'll start off with a bit of chemistry and looking at the physical properties of stainless steel, just to give you an understanding of what makes stainless steel truly stainless. Fun facts they can use at a party, I guess. With what the different grades of stainless steel mean, what gauge is and why it's important, and what makes certain types of stainless steel ideal for manufacturing sinks. Section 2 will find us back in the lab again to review a unique type of stainless steel that's type 316. You'll learn why the addition of a mere 2% of a very special element into the iron alloy makes this stainless steel super extra corrosion resistant. And then we'll review the types and configurations of stainless steel sinks. I'll take you through installation options and review the types of sinks that you'll find outside of the home. Next, we'll go over what factors need to be considered in order to select the best sink for your commercial job, paying special attention to the unique needs of like really high traffic spaces, as well as the industry standards and regulations. We'll look at some of the trends and market factors that also come into play when speccing stainless sinks. We'll touch on how far manufacturing has come and the commitments that some forward-thinking companies, aka Franke, have made in order to make their processes cleaner and safer. And we'll finish off the main part of this presentation with a few examples of how buildings of all types can have a stainless steel sink specified in each room on each floor. Then I'll leave questions at the end because Zach wants to tell you some things. So we'll begin with understanding stainless steel. For those of you who took chemistry into university, this will be old news. But for those of us who haven't been in a chem lab for 20, maybe 30 years, this is a refresher. We'll review the chemical properties of what the elements are that go into a stainless steel alloy and how the concentration of those different elements affects the alloy itself. We'll give a little primer on austenitic stainless steel and why that's used in manufacturing sinks. And we'll show you what makes stainless steel stainless. Then we'll have a slide on gauge to show you how the thickness is measured. So here's the star of the show. Chromium and nickel. Chromium is hard, it's malleable, it's glossy, it has corrosion resistance and luster, and it creates a film on the surface of stainless steel when it's combined with oxygen. We'll get into that. Nickel gives a really high metallic luster. It's a very durable material. It can withstand high temperatures and high stresses. It's really sparkly. So here's a breakdown table of all the elements in the iron alloy known as stainless steel. So each of these elements are present in different concentration depending on the type of, or also called grade of stainless steel. These elements affect the physical characteristics of the stainless, how it behaves during the manufacturing process, and then how it appears once it's formed. These elements also impact the corrosion resistance of the final manufactured product. And as it turns out, you can get pretty specific on the desirable physical qualities of a material when you're manufacturing. So within the types of stainless steel 302, 304, and 316, there are subtypes. I'm not getting that deep into this, but some of those subtypes of stainless perform better than others when it comes to manufacturing deep drawn sinks. So type 304, it's most commonly used in higher end, even some mid-range manufacturing. The corrosion resistance is thanks to the 17 to 19% chromium. It's easily manipulated and welded. It has a minimum content of nickel of 8%. The higher quality will be 10%. And when you see stainless steel that is 18/8 or 18/10, you can sometimes see that on flatware. You see the 18/8 or 18/10. That is the content of chromium and nickel in the steel. So it's just so that you know that. Type 302, the higher percentage of carbon makes this a harder material and it makes it a bit more economical too. You'll typically see a little bit less chromium and nickel in this type. Type 316 is one of the most common grades used for outdoor applications. It's got increased corrosion resistance, and the addition of molybdenum prevents specific forms of corrosion. It's commonly used in marine applications and in industrial environments where corrosion is of greater concern. We'll get into why molybdenum is so special for stainless steel in a few more slides. It deserves its own section. So we showed in the previous slide how chemical composition determines the grade of stainless steel or the type, but the crystalline structure of the material determines its workability, its strength, its formability, and conductivity. When stainless steel solidifies during the manufacturing process, its atoms arrange in a crystal structure. So stainless steel is differentiated by the way that their atoms are arranged. So austenitic stainless steels are distinguished from other types by their unique, it's a microstructure consisting mainly of austenite, which is a face-centered cubic crystal structure. Now, austenitic stainless steel is not magnetic, but it can become magnetic in certain cases. If you apply heat and pressure, that can change the crystalline structure of the stainless steel material. The crystalline structure gives excellent toughness and ductility, even at extremely low temperature. Ductility basically means that it can sustain plastic deformation under tensile stress. If you put that plainly, I guess it's like that it can be stretched and pulled and drawn into a different shape. Austenitic stainless steel also has good high temperature strength. Some grades maintain good mechanical properties, including strength and creep resistance at like really high temperatures. And creep resistance means that it can hold its shape and like it won't deform over time, even when exposed to sustained temperatures or other stresses. Austenitic stainless steel has good weldability, and in order to strengthen it, you cold form it, you don't heat it. So what makes stainless steel stainless? Here's your fun facts for the day. Stainless steel develops a film that's about 2 nanometers thick on the surface of the stainless. That's a tiny little thickness, a tiny little film, but it actually does a lot. And it's formed due to a reaction between the chromium in the material and oxygen in the air or oxygen in the water. And that's a chemical reaction, that's chromium oxide. So that's a passive layer on the stainless steel that isn't like rust. Rust, which is iron oxide, is a reaction between iron and oxygen in the presence of water, but iron oxide actually breaks down material. The passive layer on stainless steel is inert and it does not react with other elements, and that's a protective layer. It's not destructive. So this diagram shows what happens to a smooth stainless steel material when it's marred or scratched or gouged. So that passive chromium oxide layer is broken. Oh no, we got through those 2 nanometers. But as long as oxygen can get to that exposed surface, that chromium oxide layer can reform itself. It takes about 24 hours, even when submerged in water. So it's self-healing in a way. Gauge. So gauge is measured as the thickness of the raw material, not the finished product. This is a measurement that started back in the metal rolling mills, which correlated the number of times that the metal was processed. So each time that it was like rolled over and flattened. So manufacturing sourcing purposes, like we specify millimeters, but when we're communicating with the market at large, a lot of times in North America, we just use gauge because it's an easier thing. Just kind of a leftover of history, I guess. The thickness of the sheet metal ranges between 30 to 8 gauge. The higher the gauge, the thinner the sheet. So if you think the higher the number is, that was traditionally how many passes the roller would go over it. So it's flattening as it goes. So if it's rolled over 3 times versus 20 times, you think about how different that would look. A lower gauge is a thicker sheet. Lower gauge, thicker steel results in less denting and bowing when you're talking about a stainless steel sink, reduce noise, reduce vibrations. Typically, most sinks are between 18 and 22 gauge out in the field. But then when you get some more specialty sinks, you'll get 16 and 14 gauge thicker steel. So there is a type of stainless steel that chemically is a bit different, but it's a workhorse for commercial environments. And then this next section, we'll talk about type 316 stainless steel, what makes it unique and how it is used in the world today. Back to metallurgy. The addition of 2% of an element called molybdenum increases the corrosion resistance of stainless steel. Molybdenum has been used in a steel alloy since about the late 1800s. It discovered that it could replace tungsten and deliver a much lighter weight of steel, since tungsten's molecular weight is basically twice that of molybdenum. So it's a lot lighter. Its first documented use was in armor plate steel, but then it was really heavily adopted in automotive manufacturing in the 1930s. It was commonly used in pulp and paper mills where sulfur compounds were used, and it's also a very damp environment. Sulfur compounds, very damp, pretty easy to corrode stainless steel. So the addition of molybdenum was a great discovery. So molybdenum helps resist chloride pitting. So that works together with chromium to form a stronger passive oxide layer, that two nanometers, that passive oxide layer on the stainless steel. And with molybdenum, that oxide layer can remain in the passive state in the presence of stronger acids. So it withstands a lot more. It increases the protectiveness of the film, and it lowers pit growth rate. Now, pits occur when the surface of the stainless steel is marred, and then oxidation occurs before that layer can regenerate. And then that pit actually causes decay, starts as a tiny point, but it basically goes down past the surface, creating divots or little craters, and then you get that bubble of rust. So if you need that sulfide, chloride, corrosion resistant, there's environments where stainless steel components will be continuously submerged. If you've got bleach, chloride solutions, if those are being tipped into the sink, if you're thinking about like places like school labs, product development laboratories, testing facilities, pharmaceutical, and I mean, obviously healthcare classroom labs, or sorry, high school classroom labs, healthcare facilities, food service, laundry, they use bleach sometimes. And then if you think any outdoor applications or places that handle salt water, so if they're out by the ocean. So for marine applications, when you've got stainless steel coming into contact with seawater, that 2% molybdenum makes all the difference. With typical type 302, 304 stainless, that'll corrode super quick when you expose it to seawater. But with type 316, that corrosion won't occur till like about 6 months to a year, which is a great thing to consider too if you're near the ocean. Just so you know, I'm not being paid by big molybdenum. I know that type 316 is overkill for the majority of commercial spaces. You won't really see the benefits of having a type 316 sink in a teacher's lounge, in a church basement, or even a public indoor washroom. It's just more expensive, and it's not doing much. It's not performing the way it needs to be. But think about it. If it's going to be used outside, or you got to consider the chemicals that'll come into contact, or the conditions present in the environment, and how often it'll be cleaned. A lot of times, 316 stainless steel sink is the way to go. I think I've stopped talking about 316 for now. So in part 3, I will review the types of stainless steel sinks we'll see for commercial applications, and talk about how they're made. Now, sinks for commercial applications don't have the fun and funky shapes or additional features or accessories that a lot of higher end residential sinks have. You'll see squares, rectangles, rounds, ovals, and maybe a D shape for fun. The finish on these sinks is designed to stand up to really heavy duty use. The number 4 satin finishes are regarded as the industry standard for satin metal finishes for commercial sinks. It's really smooth. You see the little grain of short parallel lines. It gives a higher sheen than a lot of other satin finishes, but it's pretty easy to maintain and blend in scratches if you need to. Here we're showing single bowl, double bowl, and triple bowl commercial sinks that are installed either on top of or under a countertop. These all vary in their dimension from left to right, front to back, and in their depth, if they have a ledge or not for a faucet. Most major manufacturers will offer dozens of bowl sizes configured to meet the requirements for space and to fit the cabinet that it's being dropped into or undermounted into.
just one quick question there before
Yes,
we
sir.
move too far past it. Um, One thing that I've noticed recently is people, designers, architectural side, looking for more of like that mirrored finish.
Hmm.
So you mentioned it briefly there about the
Mm.
maintenance and the ability to like conceal scratches and dents with the satin finish. Could you talk a little bit more about that and why the satin finish functionally is a little bit more important?
Just because of the grain, it's not a pre-finished stainless steel, so it's actually used. There's brushes that will actually like apply the finish to it. Like you apply a paste, and then there's the brushes that will actually like finish the stainless. Um, just the amount of stainless, it's kind of hard to explain. Just the it's not the roughness, but just like the surface of it. It's not dead dead shiny. If you have a sink that's going to be used, like let's say in a teacher's lounge, where they're throwing things in there, they're not really careful with it. They're just, it's just a sink. They're not taking care of it. It's not being polished and cleaned. You don't want it to look if it's going through a lot of wear and tear. You don't want it to look bad any sooner than because it's not being maintained as nicely. Versus
Mhm.
in a home, you can baby it if you want to. Um, I haven't seen a lot of mirrored finish sinks just because that would seem like
Yeah, it
personally,
would very quickly show the scratch, whereas like with the satin, um, the scratch can kind of be rubbed out and almost sanded back in. Uh,
mm,
that's a
yeah.
little bit more, no, obviously you're not taking sandpaper to it,
No,
but
it
it'll
just made
hide
me
the
really
scratch a
nervous.
little easier.
Yeah. I have a mirror finished deck on my sink at home. And, the first time that gets scratched, you're just like, oh my God. But yeah, this is just for commercial applications. The number four satin finish is just pretty standard and it still looks great. The first few scratches it gets, and then when they all blend in, it makes a really nice patina and it all sort of blends in together.
Perfect. Thank you.
Here's an overview of the sinks available for healthcare spaces. These fixtures are designed for infection control for hand hygiene. There are features on these sinks that meet very specific healthcare safety standards. It's unwise to take any old sink and put it in a hospital or healthcare setting. And we'll talk about that, why that's important to consider a little bit later in the presentation. Here we're showing surgical scrub stations on the left. In the middle are hand hygiene sinks, and on the right are hand wash sinks. And here are some utility sinks. These are heavier gauge sinks that are designed for use in commercial and industrial spaces. On the left are wall-mounted utility sinks. They're great for washing up equipment, cleaning any tools. They can be super duper long or super duper deep. Um, Next, there are sewage sampling sinks. Sorry if you're eating, anyone, but these are neat. They serve one function. They sample sewage. These are installed in water treatment plants where samples of the sewage are collected. Um, the reason they do that is this is a form of public health monitoring that kind of gained a lot of traction since the start of the pandemic. You can test the sewage water for the presence and concentration of diseases. It's not fun to handle that water. So this is a sink specially designed with like kind of like the inside of a toilet bowl. Like the water flows around the rim and then basically flushes the water down instead of having a faucet that comes out of the deck. It's actually like in the rim of the sink. It flushes all the water down. You don't have to clean the sink manually. And then we've got mop and boot wash sinks. Those are installed like directly onto the floor in the corner of a wall, between two walls, in the corner of two walls. And next are the scullery sinks that are most commonly found in food prep kitchens. They're installed on legs and they have either one or two or three bowls, and they're available with the drain board on the left or on the right or on both sides.
So one question coming in here, and this may alter based on wall hung versus drop in.
Sure.
But what is the longest single basin rectangular sink that's available from Franke?
Oh, just one sec. Um, I think it is the This guy right here, I don't, oh, can you see my,
We can kind of see it, but you
okay,
might
I
want
think
to
it's
describe it.
that one. It is a long, well-mounted sink. I'm flipping through my catalog as fast as I can right now.
Well, I'm gonna guess.
Um,
My guess is 90.
96 inches left to right.
Oh, I was pretty good.
96 inches. But
And that's the wall hung, or is that
if you
drop-in?
need something bigger, it can get made. We can customize it. You just have to specify that. But yeah, as far as like a standard SKU, I think that's our biggest.
Perfect. And that was wall hung and drop-in, or just wall hung?
No, it's just well hung. Yeah.
Okay.
As far as drop in, do you want to know a drop in?
Because I think the wall hung and the drop-in are pretty similar, right? Like the ART 6096 would be similar to
Yep.
the wall hung.
Yep. You're right. Yeah. That
It's
is
like
a
it's like I've been
hand
doing this
fab
for a
sink.
decade and a half there, Angela.
I've got an ART 60. That's my longest.
Oh,
Yeah, 62. 62 and 1/8 left to right.
there we go.
So yeah,
Uh,
a little bit
if,
of a difference, but
if you need help getting your spec afterwards for that type sync, certainly reach out and we'll be happy to show you how you can get that.
super. I love the pop quiz on the fly. There, Zach. Thanks. So installation choices that goes beyond the countertop. You've got top mount, undermount, and dual mount. And a dual mount sink is basically a top mounted sink with a very flat ledge that you can actually undermount. So it kind of opens up the door to a lot more options for you. Got sinks that are mounted to the wall and some on the floor. And I guess some on legs. So we're going to go through a couple different manufacturing processes. Deep drawn and hand fab. There are others, allegedly, but these are the only two we're going through today. Um, deep drawn sinks are typically made in this manner. First, the stainless steel sheet is delivered on a coil. It's on a roll. So it has to be decoiled, so taken off the roll, flattened, and then cut to size. And that sheet is called a blank. That blank gets lubricated before the first deep draw, and that's the first pass through a press to get it to its basic shape. Then the second draw, the second level of the manufacturing process, basically pushes the stainless steel to its final shape and depth. And then we have trimming that occurs, which involves cutting off the excess and piercing the hole for the waste. And after that, the sinks are welded together if there's a couple of them, and then they're polished, and then that finish is applied, and they get put through a washing machine, clips are applied, and then they get put in a box and sent to our wonderful customers. So here's a video of the process we just reviewed in the previous slide. You see that coiled up roll of stainless steel. It gets fed through a decoiler. There's the sheet. It's going into that first stage of the press. It gets the first draw, and then it goes through a second draw. And then you can see it's getting put through a washing machine here. The sinks are inspected by a person at every point throughout the process, not just at the end. So that's on quality. So the pressure, or sorry, the steel has a lot of tons of pressure applied to it by the press. And that's where the ductility of the material comes into play, because if the specs of the stainless are off even just a little bit, that stainless will actually tear rather than stretch. That's not what you want. And if you ever have the opportunity to come for a plant tour, I really encourage you to, because it's fun to see how stainless is made. Just like a deep drawn sink, a hand fabricated sink starts with a flat sheet of stainless, but for this type of sink, it's a much bigger sheet because it needs to be cut and then folded to make the bowl and ledge shapes. And it's here we're showing the laser cutter that is used to get that raw sheet ready for bending, shaping, and welding. The cutout piece of stainless, so once it's got its weird origami looking shape, is folded, shaped, and welded. Different types of welding are used, and the process requires quite a bit of skill, as the weld needs to be made in a way that retains the corrosion resistance of the stainless steel. You can achieve deeper bowls with hand fabricated sinks. You can create different shapes of like ledges or sides or fronts. And you can also use a lot thicker sheet of stainless steel because there is a limit to how much pressure can be applied from a press on a sheet of stainless. So you can usually only do certain thicknesses, certain gauges. But for hand fab, you can, as long as you've got the equipment to fold it and shape it, you can go at a much thicker gauge of stainless. So once these are pieced together, they're polished, and then they're actually built into a crate, depending on the size. Your 96-inch wide sink is going to have a pretty big crate. So this next session will go through some of the factors to consider when selecting a sink for commercial use. This will cover installation best practices for commercial environments, considerations for high traffic areas, and what you have to consider with compliance with industry standards and regulations.
So we may end up covering some of these questions as we get through the section, but I wanted to raise them now, and if we can answer them quick, great. If not, maybe we cover it while we get to that part of the application. Easy one first, maybe. Is it possible to recycle stainless steel sinks? I would imagine
100%.
you guys are using recycled content to make them, but are they also recyclable?
Yep, 100%. Yep.
Awesome. That's fun and easy. And then one more application specific. I think while we were covering the floor mounted option showing
Mm-hmm.
the 316 for the mop sinks, they're wondering about, for mop and janitor sinks, stainless steel versus molded stone or terrazzo.
Mm-hmm.
What's the better option other than, your Franke hat on? Are there application specific aspects that may push you to a stainless steel sink or a molded stone?
Um, I mean, the molded stone, they're like you'll get chipping, right? Like sometimes you'll get like if you hit it really hard, you'll, you know, pop a chunk off the rim or crack, it can crack. I know a lot of them are super durable, they're very heavy. The stainless steel, I mean, it's designed with the 316 stainless, so it's super corrosion resistant and it's a lot lighter to install. And it won't chip off 16 gauge stainless, so it's really hard to dent too. I mean, depending on the application, just depends on, what you would want to spec.
I would also say, like, temperature fluctuation is one of the points to very much consider. Molson and terrazzo are slightly more susceptible to massive swings in temperature. If you're going from boiling to very cold, boiling to very cold, if there's an application where that's coming in, that could be a cause for concern with any of the moldstone or terrazzo. They have a certain amount of durability that they can handle that, but temperature shock is certainly something that can crack a terrazzo or molded stone mop sink, whereas stainless steel is going to handle that a little bit better. It's a lighter material as well comparatively, but I think the budget friendly economical applications
Mhm.
might be more focused on the molded stone or terrazzo, although those are certainly starting to meet in the middle depending on price of steel at the time. Uh,
Yeah.
and then just like 316 is better than Type 304, is a heavier gauge sink always better than a lighter gauge sink?
Well, it's all application specific, right? Like 316 is great for certain applications, but there's a lot of places where you wouldn't want to put it because it's just more expensive. Same thing with a heavier gauge sink versus a lighter gauge sink. You got to think of the application. I guess I can cover that in these. Let me keep going through, and I actually touch on this. So thank you, anonymous attendee. I'll get to that one. There's a lot of factors to consider when selecting a stainless steel use for a room or space in a commercial building. So we can get into that. The type of building or the job sort of helps narrow down the type of sinks that need to be installed. So you can kind of go from, all the variety in the world to a very narrow few and then make your selection from a few. The type of building, you consider the location of the sink, whether it's inside or outside, and where it is located in the building, where it's located within a room, and then which installation type makes the most sense for that application. So, in Canada, we have healthcare standards that are established for the construction specification and outfitting of hospitals and healthcare facilities where you're treating patients. And those specs are always evolving. These are national specifications that ensure that these really important critical buildings are built using best practices and take infection control measures at every step so that patients and staff and community safety are taken into consideration, because that is absolutely the most important thing. So when it comes to sink design in a hospital, infection control is key. There's an overabundance of dangerous bacteria that thrive in the plumbing system. Since a P-trap is a damp, dark environment that's constantly being fed more and more bacteria. And the last thing you want in this type of place is a faucet mounted directly above the drain. So, I mean, everything that's living in that P-trap is growing. People are washing their hands, they're washing equipment. Everything that's going down the drain doesn't just get washed away. Sometimes it can stay in the drain and is lurking right below the surface. So as you can see in this GIF, there's a faucet that's mounted with the spout directly over the drain, and that's splashing water droplets like everywhere. This was taken slow-mo, I think, on an iPhone 8. So you can visibly see those water droplets flying. But what's scary is that the water droplets that you don't see. That's not just water that's coming out of the faucet that's splashing. That's water that's splashing down into the drain, into the P-trap, and anything that's laden with bacteria gets splashed up and out onto you who are washing your hands, onto any clothes that you're wearing, or, stethoscope you might have around your neck, around any nearby people or surfaces. Water droplets have been observed traveling up to 3 feet from the drain. So that's a full meter. That's not exactly what you want to hear when you're simply washing your hands. So the way to get around that is to have a drain that is not directly under the faucet. And this highlights that the type of building where a sink will be installed is a major consideration, and that choosing the wrong type of sink due to whether it's inexperience, lack of consideration, or a lack of national standard or best practices can have a huge impact on public health. So as you can see, the plan view of those sinks on the bottom there, that overhead view, you see the drains are in the corner, away from where that faucet will be dropping the water directly down. So you need to consider the building codes and other regulations that indicate the type of sink that should or maybe should not be installed in this type of space. If there's accessibility requirements that need to be met, which type of faucet will be used with this sink, whether it's mounted on the wall, on the deck, how many holes. Consider the durability required for this space. Are there machinery, equipment, and what types of individuals that will be coming into contact with this fixture on a regular basis? So, like, basically, what are the conditions that this needs to stand up to? Here's some of the industry standards and regulatory bodies that guide our industry to make safe and accessible choices for public buildings. The ACA is the Accessible Canada Act. That's created in 2019. That's a landmark federal legislation that aims to realize a barrier-free Canada by 2040. That's their stated goal. That legislation established Accessibility Standards Canada, ASC, to develop national accessibility standards. And then the CSA/ASC B651 addresses the design aspects of physical spaces and then the elements within them to remove barriers to access for people of all different abilities. CSA B652, Accessible Dwellings, contains recommendations for accessible home design, setting the standard for affordable, adaptable, and accessible homes so that everyone who resides within a home has access to the essentials of daily life. And washing your hands, being able to use a sink is an essential. The ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, protects people with disabilities from discrimination, and it's a set of laws and guidelines to ensure that people with disabilities of all kinds have equitable access to participate in every aspect of life in the USA. So, of course, it does cover space design and takes consideration sink design, but it's also relevant to websites, so it covers every aspect of life. IATMO is a certification body for Canada and the US. If you see the CUPC mark, that indicates that a product is certified for both in the USA and Canada, and it also assures that it has undergone rigorous testing. I also show NSF there. That started in the 40s as the National Sanitation Foundation to standardize sanitation and food safety in the US, but it has since become the global public health and safety organization. You'll often see NSF in relation to food safety. And in our case, it's related to the sinks that can safely be installed where food is being prepared or handled. And it also has undergone rigorous testing to be able to display that NSF symbol. So what do these standards have in common? They're a rigorous set of standards that need to be met in order for products to be able to display their seal or make some claims. It's not simply a pay to display. There are particular benchmarks that need to be met and upheld in order for these products to be sold in our Canadian and US markets. So, space considerations. Cabinet size is an important factor in selecting a sink. The walls of the sink can't be wider than the inside of a cabinet, right? You got to consider the users, so who's going to use it. If it's going to be a sink used by 1 or 2 people a day versus a common area in a public space with high traffic. And you got to think about, is it going to be used by a wide variety of folks of varying heights, abilities, dexterities, and needs? And also think about maintenance, how often it'll need to be cleaned, how it'll need to be serviced, if there's any service that needs to be done going forward, and who and how will it be cleaned or maintained? Special consideration for high traffic sink. So we're thinking about like arenas, bus terminals, train stations, airports, public washrooms near public parks. These need to be equally accessible to as many people as possible. So a higher gauge of stainless steel sink is usually advisable for high traffic spaces. And I mean, there's some folks that just have a lot of time on their hands and evil in their hearts, and they might take out their frustrations of the world on the fixtures in a building that you're designing or that you're installing product into. I mean, we can't heal their souls, but we can be proactive and design spaces to minimize the damage that they can cause either to the facility and to themselves. And so we look for vandal resistance and ways to make the environment a little less, is interferable a word? Grid strainers, like all that stuff, so that they can't take stuff apart if they have the desire to. Luckily, we have standards and regulatory organizations that can help guide your selection, just to ensure that you're in the right ballpark when it comes to choosing products for commercial spaces. You can always call Zach up too. And be like, oh my God, I'm designing something for an arena and there's a lot of people who are drinking in here. What's the best choice for a vanity basin in a bathroom? I just saw you pop on, Zach. You got something to say?
No, I was really laughing at we can't heal their souls, but we can specify product that will battle with it.
You just want to keep people safer, right? So next we'll sort of zoom out and get into some of the social factors that are influencing the stainless steel sink market. I mean, we're experiencing a labor shortage in the skilled trades. We've got an aging workforce and fewer young people pursuing the trades sort of across the board. And the skilled trades labor force really isn't keeping up with the pace of demand and new construction. You pair that with some recent policies in the US, and the construction industry is really feeling the crunch for skilled workers. So what's been helping? I mean, legislation to make education and training more accessible to more people, along with grants to help with the cost of training. Some states are even loosening regulatory restrictions when it comes to who can qualify as a skilled tradesperson. So sort of lowering those barriers to entry. Um, Stainless steel sinks are a great choice for new construction and retrofits. They're really light, they're easy to install, a lot of times with just one person. And there's some sinks that have specially engineered features that make them way quicker to install than others. So we'll get into that one. So about 10 years ago, a new fastening system was developed for top mount sinks to make them much easier to install. And the initial goal of these ones was to lower the barriers to homeowners who wanted to install their own sinks. So you got the rise of DIY, the people wanting to do more on their own. And, you know, we always thought like there's got to be a better way. And so on the left, you'll see how sinks have been traditionally installed with the traditional sink clips. Those come in a bag. Sometimes they need to be ordered separately, but they get thrown into the box and then they need to be installed on the sink on site. So you have to like kind of tag them onto the edge of the sink. Once you're dropping them in, they're jangling around and they're a little bit hard. Sometimes they get caught on the edge of the countertop as you're dropping them in. Sometimes they flip off. And then once that sink is dropped in, you actually have to physically hold that clip and then you can drill it and snug it into place. So this new type of sink installation clip, these are just for top mount sinks. This new sink installation method was developed for the homeowner to just have something that is pre-installed, really visible, and it can be done with one hand, drop and drill, right? While it did help homeowners install their sinks quicker, in Canada, plumbers and contractors have been raving about this the most, and this is the industry standard for sinks in Canada, and we're really excited to, I mean, there's new plumbers coming in to start working every day, and this literally blows people's minds. You know, we're seeing the impact of a skilled labor shortage. So here's a way for mechanical contractors and builders and specifiers that can save time and effort on the job by installing a sink that has this clip on them because it saves so much time. You can get a lot more sinks installed in a lot shorter of a time if you're doing, you know, multiple units on a construction of a high rise. It gets them installed super quick. So yeah, you can snug it up to the countertop with just one hand, drop and drill. And it's called Easy Torque. And you'll see these on Franke commercial top mount sinks as well as Kindred top mount sinks. So accessible design. As the disability rate for Canadians and Americans continues to grow, the importance of accessible spaces can't be overstated. I mean, with more than a quarter of all North Americans living with some form of disability, we have to be considering everyone's needs when designing public and semi-public spaces. So put simply, accessible design enables all individuals to reasonably access and move around the space in a building and to be able to use those building facilities safely. So we would love to see architects, engineers, specifiers, and designers go beyond the bare minimum when it comes to providing accessible features. I already mentioned the legislation and organizations that address accessible spaces, the ACA, ADA, and the CSA as well. So when it comes to designing accessible spaces, you need to consider the sink's depth, the drain position for knee clearance, and also the types of faucets being used. And here's where we get into recyclable materials. Stainless steel is one of the most recycled materials, and it is 100% recyclable. Same can't be said for a lot of other building materials. These ISO standards, they are globally recognized standards for quality management, for environmental management systems, and also for occupational health and safety performance. These are all really rigorous. They involve management all the way down to everyone who's working in all aspects of a company to help ensure compliance and engagement and buy-in from everyone. And it also even impacts customers as well when it comes to quality. And this adhering to these standards shows a commitment to worker health, safety, well-being, to environmental, making sure that we have a sustainable future. We're committed to a sustainable future. And it also helps to make sure that there are processes to deliver products and services time after time with reliability.
One quick question, just as we're on the topic of recycling. Does the quality of the stainless steel degrade over time as it's recycled?
No, doesn't.
Great.
Um, Now that we've learned about how stainless steel sinks are made, what types are available, why it's a sustainable choice, let's have a look at some applications. And I can see we're at 12:50, so I'm going to move through these a little bit more quickly than okay, yeah. Condos, mixed use, multifamily. They have more than just apartments in the space, right? Small bar and kitchen sinks can be used in common areas, in meeting rooms, and in the gym space. If there's a laundry facility, there's 10 to 14-inch deep laundry sinks that can be used. Floor mounted mop sinks or scullery sinks can be used to rinse out mop buckets and cleaning equipment in utility rooms. And a scullery sink can be found in food prep areas if there's a kitchen or a cafeteria in those mixed use buildings. So something that we're seeing in the market more and more is the addition of pet washrooms in mixed-use residential and multifamily homes. There are pet wash stations that are coin operated. These are huge units that can take up a lot of wall space. But this is just a slide to show you how floor-mounted stainless steel mop sinks can do the trick too. So you can have a utility wall mount sink for a smaller dog that you can lift up to that doesn't take up any floor space, or the larger floor-mounted stainless steel mop sinks that a dog can step into, and then we've just got all the different attachments there to be able to wash and rinse them off. Or if you just want to wash off their paws, it's pretty easy too. So food service facilities like restaurants, cafeterias, catering, food processing plants all have a need for different kinds of stainless steel sinks. Small bar sinks and triple bowl sinks for washing up. We'll see a lot of triple bowl sinks in church basements around here. When specifying a scullery sink for food prep, it's important to consider the inside corner radius of the bowls. Health units everywhere require coved corners rather than those 90-degree, it looks like the inside of a box, because the inside of a box corners, the food gets stuck in those corners and the bacteria will breed and it's hard to clean out. So having those rounded corners makes sure that it's super easy to wash all that food residue away. And if you're speccing a sink that is certified NSF2, will ensure that your scullery sinks meet code for food prep. So in education, in a teacher's lounge or a staff kitchenette, you'll find top-mounted sinks with one or two bowls. Some of them are also wheelchair accessible. And some of these single and double bowl sinks are available in type 316 if you've got a high school lab. Classroom sinks with multiple ledges are still commonly found in classrooms with either a faucet or two or soap dispenser. Here in Ontario, and I'm sure in other places, there's a legislation that specifies that there needs to be a sink in every classroom for access to drinking water and washing their little hands. And that minimizes disruptions to class time and encourages good hygiene before and after meals, or if they've been crafting in class. The wide and deep art room sinks are available in type 304 and type 316 stainless, and they're great for washing up equipment, instruments, and they're also great in labs. And stainless steel vanities are vandal resistant and great for bathrooms of all kinds. And along the bottom are the utility sinks that are floor mount, wall mount, or on legs, available as small or large as you need, 16 or 14 gauge to stand up just about anything that a shop teacher can throw at it. And again, there are very specific building codes, health and safety and regulatory requirements for healthcare facilities. And just so you know, deadly outbreaks have occurred as a result of poorly designed sinks. And so it's important to make sure that you're considering patient safety, usability, and infection control when you're putting sinks where people are sick and might have weakened immune systems or susceptibility to different bacteria and germs. And on that happy note, that's all I've got.
Fantastic. You word through that. That was fantastic.
Okay.
There was a couple of questions that came in, and while I get ready to kind of get the presentation over on how they can specify these products, I wanted to highlight one really quickly. Someone asked, basically why Franke over other manufacturers and kind of what differentiates one stainless steel manufacturer versus the other.
Mhm.
Obviously, as this is an accredited ASPE presentation, we're not talking specific to manufacturer benefits or anything like that. But hopefully, as you saw, I would say maybe diversity of product available, being able to fit multiple applications, codes and standards internationally, not just on what meets your local building code, but also how they're produced, the quality of material used, recycled content, everything like that probably should tie into your decision. And honestly, the two biggest ones when it comes to uh, condos, other applications where you're installing a number, most of it comes down to installation time. Because if you have 100 sinks and being able to install one 30 seconds, a minute and a half faster, that adds up over time. And honestly, when it comes to condos or multi-use, sound deadening, the quality of sound deadening is something you should really look into because that's one of the highest pieces of feedback. The same with why people get annoyed when a toilet flushes and you get water hammer. No one wants to hear when the teacher in the next classroom is dropping dishes into the sink. So those are things to look into. If you want more information on that, certainly reach out to me. I'm happy to go over it one-on-one. And I know we've also covered that in some of the non-CEU presentations. A couple of other really quick questions. We had a question about ADA versus building codes in Canada for barrier free. Um, the really short answer is that yes, in Canada we have our provincial building code standards. All of those are trending to move more towards the national building code standard, and the national building code standard does align more independently with the ADA. So the truth is that we're kind of moving towards it, in towards aligning, but there are some differences still. And then questions for you as I take over the screen share. What's the general lifespan of a sink in like a food service application? They have ongoing aggressive cleaners, maintenance, abusive washing procedures from the
You would
15, 16
have
year old kid.
you would have a hard time wearing out a stainless steel sink. And I mean, you've got the other question had to do with rust. I think that the rust issue, how you can rust a stainless steel sink if you have if you didn't pick the right grade of stainless steel for the application, that will impact the durability of your sink. So if you're pouring, if you've got someone who uses a lot of bleach for cleaning, I don't know why they would, but they do, then that will cause pitting and corrosion, and put like tiny little microscopic holes in the sink and allow more corrosion to happen deep under the surface. But as long as you're washing away, like if you're canning a lot of tomatoes, you can rust your sink because of the acidity. But as long as you wash it away, you should be fine.
Perfect. So I'm going to do the fastest run through I've ever done of ATS Spec Tool. If this is your first time joining us, hopefully you've got another 5 minutes for me. If you have to jump off, I totally understand. Frankie and I think probably closer to 50 now than 30, but I used to say about 30 other manufacturers. We are adding manufacturers all the time. They've joined our spec tool service to try to provide the ability to architects, interior designers, and engineers the ability to actually configure your product, get exactly what you want, and then download it in a easy to use format. These formats should match your internal standards. So if you are looking to keep your internal master up to date, we can help you with that. If you have a one-off product selection for a job, we can help you with that. And all of this is, in essence, paid for by the manufacturers because it's free of charge for anyone in the design community. If you're looking for this recording or any others, you go to atspec.com, go to the event directory and our webinar recordings. And if you want this presentation specific for your engineering firm or architectural firm, reach out. My team will be happy to set that up. We can do a lunch and learn or breakfast learn with your team. All of the accounts are associated within your firm, so you can share projects from, Zach's engineering firm in Toronto can also work with Zach's engineering firm in Vancouver. We can share projects online. We can share masters. You have accessibility to navigate and view all your previously created projects, masters, and quick specs with the left toolbar. And that takes us into the quick actions tab here, where again, we've got projects, quick specs, and masters. These are in essence just different degrees of folder, different levels of folder. A quick spec is, as it sounds, the fastest way to make a selection on the site. It just requires a title for your folder. Now we are not applying any, we have no regional information. We can't make a barrier-free recommendation for you because we don't know where this is going to be. If you select a project, you would put in your location, and then you would be able to advise us, um, where it is. We can advise you of the local building code, and then you can go through and make a selection. So we've got a number of different manufacturers in here. If we are looking to configure our sink, something as simple as a single bowl drop-in sink, 20 by 20. We can see the LBS 6808 here, gives us our list price. As my account is US, it shows US dollars. If your account is Canadian, it shows Canadian dollars. We have the manufacturer spec sheet here if you want to double check any of the information, or if you wish to, say, double check some of the finer details. Now, with sinks, it's relatively straightforward, although there are some options. When you get to like your backflow, your water heaters, your pumps, that's where you may want the sizing tools that are integrated in the system, or the manufacturer spec sheets that are integrated in the system. From here, we would just select our center set. We've got our single hole 8-inch center custom hole drillings. Select our crumb cup strainer versus our basket strainer. Now we've updated our model name and number, where we've specified exactly what we want, and we can move on to the next product in the chain. So if you want just the sink, you could hit complete and be done. ATS is all about putting together complete product selections, so matching the sink to the faucet. Something like a single hole faucet is going to be aligned and matched through our rule engine with a single hole sink. Something as simple as that, but that often gets overlooked. That often gets misspecified and can lead to change notices down the line. So I'm just going to hit complete here because, believe it or not, that is what we call the old slow way of doing it. We have now launched our masters, which I mentioned earlier, which allows us to make things even faster for you and your engineering team. If you may have your own internal masters. Zach's engineering firm has a way that I've been doing masters for the last decade. They may not always be up to date, but they're generally pretty good. I'm feeling happy with it. I don't want to change too much. This ties in to your internal masters. We can notify you when a product that's in your master has gone out of date. So if Franke changes the model number from an LBS 6808 to an LBS or an AB for Angela Bird, Angela Bird single hole sink, it's an ABS 6808. Now your master is going to ping you and say, hey, this product's out of date. We recommend putting in XYZ product instead. And that's going to hold true for your projects and your masters. And then give you this awesome ability where if we go to, let's say we'll go to the hospital master here, I can simply drag and drop from my hospital master into my current project file. So my team can use, if there's a new EIT that I've hired, they're able to be guided to the correct selection. They know that this is the sink, double bowl, and barrier-free sink that Zach, the principal, has worked on to confirm that is accurate for these applications. So I can multi-select and just drag and drop these products into my new project file. Super simple, easy to use. That's what we call the new fast way. Keeps things accurate, keeps things aligned with my standards, and make sure that my everyone within my firm is working off of my approved masters. And then you can download it, like I mentioned, 10 different ways. Each of these have some additional options. So engineers may have come to us in past telling us, hey, I like the schedule format, but I always have to go through the pain of trying to make it all caps. So we've added a simple option that you can choose. Long spec, hey, I like the spec format, but your page formatting, the margins don't align with how my firm uses the margins. No problem. You can exclude page formatting. Revit files, CSI three-part specs, manufacturer spec sheet formats, even product brochures, which really is just like just the pretty pictures, so and a couple of short details, so you can put just 2 products per page, whatever it is. Download your zip file and then take those formats and put them into however you are delivering your project. So that's the really quick version. If you'd like more detail on how this can fit into your day to day, feel free to reach out to me or my team. We do one-on-ones, we do these live training sessions all the time. And if you want to see how we can help keep your masters up to date or keep your projects, prevent change notices on your projects, that's what we're here to do and happy to help. So yeah, I recognize I'm already over time. Uh, we won't get into the formats, I guess, today because I'm sure people are already dropping off. Uh, but yeah, thank you very much for attending. Hopefully that was worthwhile for everyone. If you end up wanting to see formats, stick around and we'll show you answer any additional questions or show any additional products that you wish to see on the system. But without any further ado, thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us. I think we have another one coming up next week. That's going to be another great session. Um, look out for your CPD and your ASPCU credits coming soon. We'll have the list over to Angela and let her do what she wants. Thank you, Angela. That was great.
Thanks, Zach. Thanks, everyone.
Yes.